Recording in progress.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah Turner. I'm the Vice President of the school board here. Our president is participating with us via Zoom, so he and our other member are able to hear everything that's been said, but we did go through a specific protocol before closed session about the legality of holding like a hybrid meeting. So again, thank you for being here. We are now returning to open session. And I have not run the meeting in 2 years, so y'all are going to have to bear with me, and I'm going to apologize right now for anything that seems a little clunky. So we are now at 5.1, approval of the consent. Oh, I'm sorry. All right, we are at 4.2, reconvening back into open session. We do have. Oh, thank you. See, I'm already, people are like, you're doing it wrong. Yes,
All right.
I am in fact
We'll do
doing
a
it
roll
wrong.
call vote. Mr. Jacob Sandoval,
Aye.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Mr. Neil Patel,
Aye, Captain.
Ms. Elva Ariano,
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Then we do.
Okay, but I need to do I didn't report out about what we did in closed. Okay. Sorry, guys. So during closed session, the board took the following actions. 2.1 appointed Krisha Kerpool as coordinator of educational technology effective July 1, 2022. The vote was 5-0. 2.2.2 appointed Hillary Nichols as principal, Santa Rita Elementary School, effective July 1, 2022. The vote was 5-0. And I have one more thing that I need to pull up the there was also a vote regarding a legal settlement. Yeah, I'm just. So I'm just reading the case number, yes? Okay, so we came to a settlement agreement. It was a 5-0 vote regarding case number 20220304429. Thank you for bearing with me. Okay, is there anything else we need to report out from closed session? Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you. 5.1, can I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval,
Aye.
Mr. Neil Patel,
Aye, Captain.
Ms. Elva Ariano,
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, 6.1, Santa Rita Teachers Association.
Good evening. I feel super short. I'm Kate Stover, the SRTA president, and I would like to speak to you, acknowledge our fantastic staff that is here to show that we are united to ensure that our students have a safe school, that our students have a stable staff that's consistent so that we have professionals that can provide our students the proper education they fully deserve. And I also want to introduce to you, trustees, our future SRTA president and vice president, with Heather Varela, who will be serving as president next year. And she doesn't know she's being introduced. Ashley Parker is going to be our vice president next year. And I just want to acknowledge, I was able to attend the Monterey County honoring the teachers and classified staff dinner with Becky and Donna last week. And I just want to acknowledge Becky for the effort she put in to making sure our little district was heard and acknowledged up against the big districts. Like we regularly heard the high school district, MPUSD, the large districts in the area. And then our little 7-school district was right there with them. So I just want to acknowledge Becky for making sure that our name is out there and heard in the area so that teachers and staff and classified know who we are and that we are a district that we are a family and we support each other. And that's what you see right here. Thank you.
Thank you. 6.2 CSEA.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rhonda Velez. I'm finishing my 18th year with SRUSD as health aide at GV with no plans to retire yet. That's a good. Thank you, Jan. I also hold the position of CSEA Chief Union Steward, and we've begun negotiating, and we look forward to reconvening tomorrow morning. Our classified staff is working alongside our teachers, preparing and completing the end of year tasks and events. And CSEA stands in solidarity with SRTSCA union members. Thank you.
Thank you. 6.3 is listed on the agenda as principals and department spotlight, but we do not have one this evening. So we're going to go on to 6.4, superintendent's cabinet, and we're going to start with the chief business officer, Rosa Zamudio.
Good evening. These last days, we've been working side to side and in collaboration with Donna, working on the LCAP and getting ready for the next budget that's coming up. Estimated actuals, and also the July 1st budget. We've been really busy with that and the reports. And the good news is that we already hired our new accounts clerk, so we're going to be full staff pretty soon. So that's really good. And we continue our work on working on budget revisions and meeting with our departments to ensure that our budgets are balanced for our current year and next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
I'm looking forward to the update on Friday. Hopefully that comes out from the state, and so we can move forward with our financial matters. So thank you.
Moving on to Director of Special Education, Ms. Melanie Grundy.
Perfect. Good evening, everybody. From the Special Ed Student Services side of the house, we had the opportunity to attend the 3F's legal training last week, where we were able to bring all of our school psychologists as well as some of our teacher leaders. Just a really good training with that legal lens for special education. Most of us in the room have been attending all of our special education IEPs that we've been playing catch up with. Including our initials, triennials, and all of those transition meetings. So just appreciate everyone's hard work, just getting them in and keeping them so student-centered. Planning for extended school year, summer school for our special education students that qualify through the IEP. We're still hiring teachers, so if you know of anyone, please send them our direction. But we do have full staff with speech and OT services. We've been busy building special education classes and caseloads and just looking at our numbers for next year and looking at where we'd need to hire and make sure we have our numbers low so we can continue to provide quality services. And then just still in full force for recruitment. So just appreciate all the hard work the HR department team has been providing special ed with the openings. So we are still looking for speech pathologists as well as occupational therapists and 2 sped teachers. So get the word out there. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Moving on to Director of Parent, Family, and Community Engagement, Dr. Summer Rather-Smith.
Good evening, everybody. It's weird. I want to say afternoon because it's still light outside. But good evening, everybody. I've spent this week working with our community, and I'm hopeful that you'll hear about that soon. So I'll leave that to the community to share. What I'm going to share with you this evening is we received the results from our California Healthy Kids survey, all except for one, elementary. Thank you to all the staff who participated in that survey, as well as our students and parents. We had a great turnout, a great response rate. So I'm going to be sharing those publicly as soon as we get the elementary report, which I hope is this week, but I'll be sharing with our board tonight the ones that we have in so far so that you can see those. So I'll pass those down. It's a stack. It's a stack per return. Yeah, they're already sorted. And then the last part that I'll share with you, and it's another challenge to our board. Sorry, board members, I'm giving you guys the work tonight. No. We're heavily recruiting for our TK and Kinder classes. And so we sent out with all of our students, or you soon will be sending out these flyers. We're going to host a TK Kinder roundup on the 20th, which I organized, but then I'm not going to be here, which you'll hear about later, but we'll still organize it. So a TK Kinder roundup on the 20th. And we really want to get the word out to the community. We know that most of our TK and Kinder students maybe don't yet have siblings in school. So my challenge to the board is I'm going to give you a stack of these. If you'll share around your areas and your community, we've placed some in stores, given them to neighbors. So this is a stack for our board. Anybody else who knows a TK or possible Kinder in the Santa Rita area, also feel free to take some. So I'll pass those down. And it's also posted on the front of our board. There's a QR code that can be scanned there. And then just last but not least, there's also our summer school posters up there if anybody here has a child who's interested in summer school. So thank you all.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Donna Koenig.
Thank you. It's been great this last couple weeks working with everybody, all the school site admin as well as the district level admin, from working with the business office on LCAP and budgets and school site master schedules and building their class loads. Also, we have the summer academy being built, so parents will be getting those shout outs and parent square blasts about signing students up. They sign the students up, and then from there, we have an eclectic sort of offerings for Summer Academy, which is great. And so from enrichments to interventions to everything in between with physical education and art, and from the elementary school to the middle school level. So it's going to be a great offering. It's from June 6th to July 14th, Monday through Thursdays. And again, those flyers are posted and going out virtually. Girls Inc. will also be sending out flyers for girls ages 8 to 11, and that camp will take place at McKinnon July 5th through 15th. And that's an exciting program as well. We'll be having our LCAP meeting virtually next Wednesday at 6 p.m. So you'll be hearing that parent link going out with all the links this weekend. And it's just been great to work with everybody collaboratively on the future steps of next year and where we're going with rollovers, and hearing that our new hire came in for our ed tech coordinator. That was great as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions?
I'm just looking forward to the offerings that we'll be doing for summer. I'm concerned about the loss of learning that our students have went through. So all these opportunities, we can continue to provide, and I like the variety. So I think students can choose what interests them, but as long as they're involved. Thank you.
Absolutely. We also have iReady coming to help with their intervention programs, and the FEV tutoring program is also joining us, as well as some of the other intervention programs. And I believe we have STEM USA coming back as they did in the winter. So really trying to keep those students engaged in the needs that they need, as well as the enrichments that they need.
Thank you. Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Becky Moore.
Thank you. we have really been focusing our efforts on hiring. So we're pleased about the 2 appointments tonight. We have one more administrator position that we will be interviewing this week, as well as teacher positions and special education positions. We've been interviewing multiple times each week with standing appointments. And so I really thank my HR team for the support on that. And my other effort has been working with negotiations with our partners in CTA and SRTA and CSEA. And so I'm thankful to our negotiations teams on both sides because I'm grateful that we can have really productive conversations and look forward to continuing those. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, we're going to move on to the board and the superintendent. Mr. Andrew Sandoval, can we start with you?
Yes, thank you very much. I had an opportunity to attend a Brown Act training put on by Lozano. I learned a lot about Brown Act and being compliant and making sure that the community is aware of what's going on in our district. I also had an opportunity to attend our concert at John G., which Miss Casapia did a fantastic job. They played, the concert band played, or the orchestra played Jurassic Park, and Miss Casapia came out in full dinosaur apparel and conducted that. And I think the students did an amazing job, and the teachers did an amazing job.
Thank you. Mr. Neil Patel?
These past 2 weeks since our last meeting have been both full of joy and sadness. I always like to think of our district as a very inclusionary district. We appreciate all cultures, all races, and we strive to make sure that we try to create a community that is loving and caring. And I've seen that. And I've seen that grow in our community. And I love the fact that we're incorporating Baila Folklorico and various other models, restorative justice programs over the years. And, we're making that effort. But on the other hand, there's this thing going on. And I wish I could say, it was localized, but it isn't. I'm seeing it across districts, across places. And there's this intolerance and lack of respect that is going on right now. And, we've had 2 years of students away from social interactions, structures, examples, modeling, mentoring. And as a teacher myself in 9th grade, I'm seeing the effects. And the level of disrespect on multiple fronts is intolerable, and it breaks my heart. We're going in reverse. And I think, what do we do? And to me, it's an issue of, hey, you know what? Deal with it. We're teachers. We're education. That's our job. It is up to us. And so for our district to take the steps that we have done so far, and not just short term, but I'm asking for long-term comprehensive support and development of programs and outreach, that we can get back to this growth phase of being more inclusionary and more loving community. From these events that are occurring, and they seem to be occurring more and more in the last year or two, we have to fight back. Every time ugliness is raised, we as educators have to fight back. And so I want to thank the teachers for being here. I want to thank the parents for being here, the church, Pastor Smith. I want to say thank you. But once again, this is not a short-term solution. This has to be comprehensive. It has to be long-term. It has to be sustainable if we're really going to make an impact. So I'm looking forward to hearing from all the voices tonight, because I think the first step is to listen and really understand the hurt and pain that has been caused in our district. And then to look at some of the solutions we're looking at, some of the outreach, what are we doing to create a better environment so this doesn't happen again? And here's the thing, it probably will. It will. It's the nature of humans. We came to forget lessons learned. And so I hope we have the tenacity of a long-term, permanent, baked-in situation where we, across the board, from our students to staff to teachers, that we have this level of respect and understanding that we communicate and model and stand up for. So once again, it's been a mixed feeling of the last 2 weeks. So thank you for everyone being here. Thank you, teachers. Thank you, parents. But it's been a bittersweet week. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Alvariano?
Thank you. Very well said, Mr. Patel. I think we all have the same feeling on the board. I wanted to report that I went to go see at Gavilan View Middle School the Ballet Folklorico, the 3 very good, courageous girls and brave young ladies who really performed, and they led there was 3 of them. The others were a little shy, but I'm hoping that it'll grow into something bigger. It was one of my favorite things when I was working as a teacher at Sherwood School. That was one of the greatest pride that the children really developed. But and there's a lot. The arts, part of the arts. So it was really, really nice. The other thing that I went to was a webinar today at 1 o'clock, and the name of it was How to Modify Your Dress Code to Meet Title IX. Limits for the 2022-23 school year. Very interesting, a lot of good points, great presentation, a great PowerPoint. And I'm looking forward to looking at our policies on the board. There was a lot. There was a lot to take in, a lot to digest. And I'm hoping that being part of the Behavior Task Force, that we'll be able to make adjustments and really look at the wording on our policies. So that was great, and that was it.
Thank you. I'm Sarah Turner, the Vice President of the board. I attended the Monterey County School Boards Association meeting, where we had a great meeting talking, and that's attended by reps from the school boards all over the county. We had a great meeting about trying to get things going again, ramping up, now that we're moving into a theoretically post-COVID times. That was a really good meeting. I also went to the Monterey County Education Coalition meeting. There's a lot of huge bills that are up in Sacramento right now, some of them that have moved out of committee that could really potentially reshape education in California. So my eyes are wide open come June 30 of what actually happens. And there are a bunch of legislators, some of whom are not running again, but have basically said, like, before I leave office, I got to fix this. And they've got, their projects that they want to move forward, including dealing with how we fund schools, basically things like transportation, other things. So it is going to be a crazy summer, and keep your eye on what's happening in Sacramento. I also had a bunch of teachers reach out to me about things that are happening locally in our district, and I'm incredibly grateful for everybody who calls me or emails me. I always want the firsthand information, and somebody said, talked to somebody today and said, I'm not promising to fix your problem in 3 weeks, but I'm promising that I'm not giving up on your problem. So we're going to just keep moving together best as we can. Alrighty, going over to Jacob.
Good evening, everybody. My apologies that I couldn't attend in person. I'm actually in Michigan, so we're 3 hours ahead. So I actually might have to leave a little bit early just because of the space that we're in. But I was able also to attend the musical conference at John Gutierrez. It was really great to see the students out there performing. The parents that were proud, They did a really awesome job. It's great to see things opening up again and just having those activities that our students enjoy. I also was able to speak to some teachers and also some parents and stuff. And one thing I want was really important for me when I came on the board, and I appreciate the district office, is an open door policy to the community. You know, where if there's an issue, at the very least, we're going to listen and try to figure out a way to resolve it. So I do appreciate the district staff and also my fellow board members to when the teacher emails you or a parent emails you or calls you, that everybody's always very receptive. And as tough it might be to confront a situation, is it's important to have those conversations. It's the only way that that growth happens. So I appreciate the community and the teachers that came out today as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent?
I promised Diane Galing that I would give the board an update that our middle school music visits have started over at our elementary schools to hopefully recruit some incoming students. Our upcoming concert, Thursday, May 19th, I can send you some more information via email. And the CMEA CCS honor concerts are now streaming on YouTube. I wanted to give you an update on where we're at with our intra-district transfers. So we have completed 227 into our district, 228 out of our district. We have another 14 who have submitted, but we're working with them on getting some missing information. We send out a weekly email reminder, and 9 additional people have started their process online but haven't submitted yet.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to 7.1, public comment. Thank you guys for hanging in with us. I really appreciate it. I'm just going to go through the cards that I have. If you haven't filled out a card and you want to talk, please bring it forward. If I say your name wrong, I'm so sorry. I'm apologizing in advance. We are asking people to try to keep each comment to 3 minutes just so that everybody can be heard. And we did also receive things via email that we're going to read at the end so that we're not forgetting. We'll get there eventually. Miss Tamisha Smith, you're at the top of my pile.
It's already awkward. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, board. I appreciate this time to talk, to speak, and my voice is already shaking. All right, so I wrote a few things for most of you who don't know who I am. I am a parent of a student at JGMS. I'm also an educator at Salinas Union High School District, and so I see both sides. So I commend you, teachers. We're almost at the end, and I know where you are. I feel you, okay? But I'm just gonna, I wrote some things down so I don't mess it up. So we know of what happened and the racist remarks that were made by a young lady and the hurt that it caused for a certain community. My daughter being a part of that community, young African-American Black ladies. And it's just time that we start to educate, to eradicate this hate that is just happening. Stop making excuses. And when I'm talking to teachers, I'm talking to parents, I'm talking to myself. Stop making excuses, start making lesson plans. If they don't know, teach them. If you don't know, let your pride and guard down and go learn. Then be courageous to fail forward with the important information that we need to impart on our youth so we can change this behavior. We've got to change these perspectives. We've got to change the laissez-faire attitude, like it doesn't matter. If it didn't touch me, it doesn't really matter. But don't be afraid of the follow-up question, why? I think we as parents and educators are very afraid of that question. We get some information, we throw it on the kid, and we don't expect them to ask, well, why? Because we don't have the answer. But that's our job to go seek that answer. Speak it even if your voice shakes. You heard me when I first came up here. Feel comfortable and knowledgeable enough to admonish racist behavior in the moment. We have to unlearn things as educators first, We have to unlearn some things and relearn. And if there's information that you know that is contradictory to the textbook, please, please use your heart, your soul, and your mind and teach these kids the right thing. And I want to speak specifically, and this might hurt some feelings, and I'm not here to hurt feelings, but I'm here to speak on behalf of my child and the other young Black ladies that were affected. We know the weaponizing of white tears happens. And it happened in this situation. When the girls nonviolently confronted the young lady that said, all you niggas should not be breathing, when they nonviolently confronted this young lady, she immediately started crying, ran to the office, and was consoled. Consoled. For threatening lives, really. You shouldn't be breathing, but she's consoled, oh, it's gonna be okay, yet the young Black ladies who were in the office were told, you need to sit down and wait for whoever it was that took them to the office. Not consoled when they were the victims of unwarranted hate. That person woke up and chose violence that day. They woke up and thought it was a regular day to come to school. But they experienced hate, and I just have a suggestion. We need to create experiences for staff, students, parents, so they know how this feels. We can't always coddle feelings. I want to thank you, Summer, for being very, I don't want to say reactive. I want to say thank you for being prepared. You already knew what you were to expect. You were very welcoming when parents called you, and you've created an opportunity, an experience for our students who were victims in this. You gave them an opportunity, or you're giving them an opportunity to go heal, to go talk about this. Usually when this happens, they're just reprimanded. Oh, it's okay. They shake it off and they live another day and experience it again. So we stop this cycle. I appreciate you being reactive, proactive, ready, and let's continue to create. Teachers, I urge us to really, really, really take the time to learn if you don't know, so we can educate to eradicate this hate. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Marquita Grant.
Sorry. Hi, good evening. I'm going to piggyback on what Chamisha said. Thank you so much, Summer, for everything that you've done for the kids. Thank you, Melissa, for coming down and speaking to the class, too. I think you said things that they needed to hear as well. I'm here because my son was in his classroom, minding his business on it every day, and for who knows how long, because I wasn't informed at a district that I work at, that my son, every time he went to raise his hand to ask a question, every time he went to answer a question, he was told to shut the F up by students in his classroom. Shut the F up. The teacher did nothing about it. The only time that she did something about it is when the student finally said, shut the F up, monkey. And this stuff has been going on all week in the school with the kids calling them monkeys, niggers. There's all kinds of just in their face with it. And then the teacher finally said something, but it's like, it's too late. How long did my son have to sit there and suffer? And 2 students came and told me about it. Not my son. My son was, because we have to teach our sons. I have to tell you this. We have to teach our sons, because you are a Black man in America, you have to be quiet. You have to sit there. You have to consult. You have to carry yourself a different way. You can't be aggressive. You can't be yelling. You can't. So he didn't even think to say, Mom, they're attacking me. And that's not okay either. 2 students came and told me what was happening in the classroom. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense that 2 students are crying, left out of the classroom crying because they were feeling the hurt for my son and the hurt in his eyes, and they're upset about it. I go and tell the principal, nothing happens. I go and tell somebody else, nothing happens. I tell Summer, something happens. Summer informs Melissa, something happens. But why did it have to take that long? And then I understand the things, me working at, John Gutierrez, and then that too. John Gutierrez did not represent anything that's happening in that school right now at all, period. If he was alive, he would be disgusted. He would be disgusted. And for his name to be attached to the things that's happening in that school right now is disgusting me. Like, because I know him as a person and I love him as a person. And so knowing who he is, it's just ridiculous. But what I wanted to say was also, what was going on in that school that the teacher didn't feel okay that she could go and talk to somebody about it? You know, these things are happening in her class, and I see in that school kids attacking teachers every day, verbally, aggressively, and nothing's being done. So I also understand her side, as in, you know, she didn't feel comfortable enough to go and tell somebody that kids are attacking my students, kids are saying stuff to me, and that needs to be taken care of as well. So I want that to be addressed, and I don't like I said, I want it to be addressed, my son being called all these names. And the way that I feel that that's something that can help it is if the kids that are doing these behaviors have to come up to the kids that they hurt, sit in front of them, and let the kids that were hurt explain to them how they hurt them and how it made them feel. Because when you're in front of it and you're seeing it, it's different. Melissa came, she told, and she was stern. She was not playing with them babies. And she told them, look, we're not okay with this. We're not accepting this. We're not accepting that. But they came out of the assembly like, ah, and with the like a lackadaisical, I don't care attitude. So something else has to be done. They have to be sat in front of the children, the teachers, because I've seen teachers crying in regards to children yelling at them and saying rude things to them. So they need to sit in front of the people that they are hurting and actually have to deal with upfront and personal what they're doing. And I think that that's what needs to be done. And their parents need to come in too. They need to sit with the other parent. And they need to hear what's going on, because where are they getting it from? Just like my son is sitting there quietly because I taught him to be respectful, I'm sitting there quietly because I was taught to be respectful by my mom. So what are you teaching your kid? You know what I mean? So there needs to be some type of workshop, something, so that it can be handled and not just left to the side. Thank you.
Luis Sago Juarez.
Good evening, everyone. Teachers, really appreciate the union showing up, community. Born and raised on the east side of Salinas, the Alisal Union School District, Salinas Union High School District product, and just really proud to be able to call this place a home, to be able to afford a home, actually. You know, to be here, physically even be here after the 2 years of the pandemic. We're recognizing that this isn't just exclusive to this school. We're still trying to work out what happened at Salinas High School last year. And we're recognizing that it's nationwide. And we're recognizing a lot more things about this moment, and how it's embedded in the history of this country. It's deep. And that pain, that it's still surfacing. The anti-Black racism amongst the Mexican community goes back, all the way back to the colonization of that country. At one point, there was one Spaniard to 30 enslaved Africans in Mexico. I had the opportunity, the privilege to do a little DNA check. I found that I'm 3% of African descent, 3% from West Africa. And then I realized, and I do a little more searching, it's like, oh, it's 4% on average of Mexicanos have African blood. But I'll tell you right now how challenging that would be to have to explain that to a family member or to a neighbor, because we've never had that safe space to really go in on that, to talk about that, to talk about the colorism, how I might stand on one point and how my darker skinned cousins might have to stand a little bit farther than me, or how my lighter skinned cousins get all the privilege. This is how complicated it can be. But I think the complication is the resistance of embracing the education, the tools, the resources, the materials, the approach to begin teaching from kinder in the United States. And yeah, I'm going to say this, critical race theory. A year ago, that was a call for a community to rally against that type of learning, that type of education, ethnic studies. And as an ethnic studies teacher myself, I'm like, wow, how was it that I'm suddenly like viewed as an enemy of the state? How did it get to that point? If racism were like something like dental work, and we talked about this, oh, you have a cavity, oh, you're gonna go to the doctor, you're gonna get that, drilled through, fill it in. Oh, sometimes you gotta do a root canal. You gotta go all the way in there. And so how do you, like, on the daily, what do you have to do on the daily? Maybe ethnic studies is your toothbrush, and maybe critical race theory is your floss. I'm really appreciative of this moment and to be able to have this conversation. And it feels like a conversation because I feel like there's some agreement on it. But the hard work is going to be tomorrow. The hard work is going to be on Monday morning, on Tuesday afternoon after lunch. Those moments right there where, where we're all just done and tired. Can we find that place, that time, that space to embrace our reality? We have to learn about ourselves. There's some, I'm looking at right here, folks, right here. There's white people here that weren't considered white at one point. So that colonization, that type of abuse, it's deep, it runs so deep, and now it's produced here in the valley, in the Salinas Valley, where a lot of the food is actually goes around the world. So what are we doing to make sure that this soil, this ground is healthy enough for all the folks who we're sharing this food with? Thank you.
Thank you. Pastor Smith?
Thank you very much to the board and superintendent trustees, to you who are here in this board meeting. It is, I have notes and I want to read off my notes, but I think Tanisha said it best, is that it's unnerving for me to stand before you and to speak on this issue. And not only is it unnerving, but when I was listening, I think to Tanisha, I fought back to tears because I have felt personally the effects of racism from children in this school district. Personally, I have prayed over children who have been called niggers and monkeys and who were told that they're not worth the air that they're breathing. I have counseled children who I'm sure may have been on the verge of suicide, because some of our children on Sunday told us that they just can't take it. They just can't take it anymore. And so where does it stop? Where does it stop? Where are we failing our children at? One of the common threads in all the children that spoke to us on Sunday was that they told an adult They told a teacher, and the teacher, the adult that they told, failed to do anything about it. And I'm looking at a sea of teachers whom our children said that they told, and nothing was done about it. Either you don't know what to do about it, and that's something that we need to fix through education, or you just don't care. And then that's something we also need to fix. Because our children are telling us that they just can't take it anymore. And we, as parents, we can't take it anymore. We can't continue to have our children, our black children, come home to us and say to us that they're being racially bullied in schools, a place where we send them to be safe, to learn, to be the citizens that we have trained them and taught them to be, only to be discriminated against. And really the sad part is that they're being discriminated against by other Hispanics, by children whose parents, if they're not still in the field picking, their grandparents are in the field picking. They're no different than our children. Think about it. Another Hispanic young lady tells another black kid that he's a slave, he's a cotton picker. Where in the hell do she think that her parents came from? You see, and I'm getting a little emotional now, because I don't want to attend a funeral of one of my children because we refuse to do anything about it. Dr. Smith, I thank you. Thank you, Superintendent Alderman Becky, for being so swift in making sure that this is eradicated and that there's consequences to the causes of what the children has done, but it's not enough. It is not enough. Just like the teacher said, that immediately after the assembly, children went back and said, what was that all about? We have got to educate our children. We have got to set up programs moving forward where this includes implicit bias training, sensitivity training, conflict resolution training, peer support groups where they can feel freely able to discuss these challenges among their peers. And then they need to be held accountable. They need to be held accountable. Because if we did that, and I say we will be held to a different standard. I live it every day. And so, it is unfair for us to entrust our children into a system that's going to raise them to be angry black men and women. It's unfair. It's unfair that we pay our taxes. It's unfair that we send our children to a place of education where they come home and then go in a room and put the covers over their head because they just can't take it anymore. And guess what? We can't either. We refuse to take it anymore. And so if I have to load up my bus of all my parishioners, all of my colleagues, and come and protest Santa Rita, but I don't believe I have to, because I believe that we have the right people in place here. But it still is not the opportune place for our children to be, because they're being discriminated against, blatantly discriminated against. Teachers are not even coming to their defense. And I believe it's because they just don't know how to. I really believe that in my heart, that they don't have the tools that they need in order to squash it at the lowest level possible. And then our children, they need to be held accountable. 1 day suspension is not enough for you calling a child a nigger. That's a terrible word. I see some of you cringe just as me saying it. For you calling a child a monkey. For you telling a child that he's not worth the air that he's breathing. 1 day suspension is not enough. That child needs to come to my church. Amen. And sit there on Sunday mornings so that we can try to help him or her, because they're hurting as well. They're hurting. They're crying out. And it's essential that they know the hurt that they're spewing to other children. Thank you.
Thank you. Lavesha from Building Healthy Communities.
Hello, everyone. Well, like Tamisha said, Black women, Black girls go through a lot. We endure a lot in this world. And just like Pastor Smith said, he doesn't want to see one of these children die. I don't know if you all are aware of a small town called Demopolis, Alabama, but it's where I have a home my family's at. But if you look it up, there was a little girl, she was 12 years old, and just 4 years ago, she hung herself because she was being bullied in this same manner, anti-Black racism in the schools, and the school's staff didn't do anything about it. And the girl came home, went in the bathroom and hung herself, and her grandmother found her, just like that, at 12 years old. She hung herself. And she had been telling people at the school, but just like Marquita's son, she was afraid that her mother would react and respond because, you know, us Black mothers, we have to be lioness. We have to protect our cubs. And that gives us that classification of angry Black women. And so our children are sometimes afraid for us to protect them. So they take the abuse because they're afraid of the repercussions and the consequences of us protecting them. And just like Pastor Smith says, we trust our children with the schools to educate them. And it's mandated, because if we don't take our kids to school, then y'all gonna take our kids from us. You know, I mean, it's like, what is it? You know, what do we do? What do we do? I mean, we're asking, like, what do we do? We don't know what to do. We want to be able to trust the education system. We want to be able to trust other people with our children because it takes a village. And I want to tell you one thing, I don't care whose child it is, but if I'm outside and I see a child fall and hurt themselves, I'm going to protect them. I don't care whose child it is. I don't care what the color is. I don't even care if we speak the same language. Because I'm a mother. That's what mothers do. And I want to ask some hard questions. You don't have to answer, but I'd like to know how many non-Black people in this room really have a Black friend, like not a token, a friend, a girl. Let me tell you what happened, Black friend, because we're good friends to have, and I mean, and I'm gonna tell you something. It will show. It will show. Because I guarantee you, if there was a teacher in there that had a Black friend, a real sister girl, a Black friend, that wouldn't happen. Like Miss Summer. And, you know, I mean, I know that there's a lot of biracial children. And, okay, you may be a mother of a biracial child, but it's still not the same experience. And not even just a classification of Black people, you know, not just rich Black people. You got to know some real Black people who struggled and get to know us. And that's the training. That's the necessary tool. That's all it would take. If, you know, you can go take all the anti-Black racism classes you want, and it's not going to give you the same experience as a conversation with one of us, a day with one of us. We are human beings. That slavery was a circumstance brought upon us. It was not a choice that we made. Okay. this cycle that we've been born into is a circumstance. And there's not one person on this planet that is responsible for this circumstance that we're in, but we're all responsible for changing the conditions. And that takes effort and intention. That's all. Like, you can say, okay, I have this class, I know about anti-Black racism. And then, oh, little Johnny, that's okay, you know, and then you can cover it. That's not enough. It's not okay. It's not okay. We want to break the cycles. Our children are loving, kind, patient, gentle. And the only reason why we are classified as a rowdy race is because we're protecting ourselves. That's all. We're like, hey, just stop abusing us. We love you. Can you love us? That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Carla Viviana Gonzalez.
Hi, everybody. Hello. I too have prepared remarks. Honorable members of the board, district leadership, it's really good to be with you all tonight. I am Carla Viviana Gonzalez, co-founder of the Salinas Valley Ethnic Studies Collective, co-founder of the Monterey County Black and Brown Solidarity Coalition. I'm known to my students at Alsa High School as Miss G, and known to others in this community as District 1 Salinas City Councilwoman Carla Gonzalez. And I'm here today to speak on the recent incident of harassment, racism, and anti-Blackness inflicted upon one of our students. And I hope that in my remarks and in everyone's remarks, we're able to help illuminate to you all the urgency and attention that this requires of all of us, This is a packed room, but there should be more people here, of all of us. And I hope you pay attention. I saw people upset in the audience. I hope you are upset. I hope it sits with you. I hope what you hear today follows you home. I hope that at night you really digest this, that you process and you feel that feeling of discomfort, because I can guarantee you that it's a fraction of what those students felt, a fraction. I'm here as an educator, as an advocate for our youth, and more important than as a member of our city council, I'm here as a lifelong member of this community of Salinas. Racism, anti-Blackness, prejudice, and so forth, all of the isms are not an uncommon phenomena. I'm sure that each of us can point to incidents of these isms, these microaggressions, or outright aggressive behavior that we've either witnessed or experienced for ourselves. You know, Chago mentioned the lighter cousins. I'm one of the lighter cousins at the party. And, you know, my little brother went to the same high school as me, you know, grew up in the same neighborhood. He's very dark-skinned. He has much more indigenous features. And I've been in this community and had folks be racist to him and then look to me for approval. My brother, my little brother. And so for better or worse, I always felt like his protector and felt like it was my job to learn and to unlearn. You know, it's widely known that these ideologies, these destructive ideologies and these harmful behaviors are taught to us. This is not a natural occurrence. This is taught, learned behavior, right? And as a history teacher, as a student of history, I can tell you that these isms are deeply, deeply embedded in our history, in our institutions, and in our daily interactions with these institutions.
I'm also a product of this school district. I graduated from Alza High School. I serve my community because I love my community. Everyone here, I guarantee you, is here because of love. It might not sound like that, but I can guarantee it. It's because of love. You know, what we learn as members of a society, what our youth are taught as acceptable behavior or tolerable behavior by our teachers, by our elders, by leaders, directly affects how we treat one another, how we coexist, and how we relate to one another. Anti-Blackness is a particularly perverse ideology. I say this as someone who has long devoted themselves to the study and now teaching of race, culture, and history. And what I want you all to know is that the damage of incidents like this touch on a long, long history of subjugation, of oppression, of dehumanization, of colonization, and of so many other phenomena. To know that incidents like this continue to occur in my home is disheartening. To then hear from my good friend, Pastor Smith, that this was done by a Latinx student is heartbreaking. You know, as a proud Chicana, I can fully testify to the power, the true power of Black and Brown solidarity and the promise of collective liberation, because best believe my liberation is tied to yours, it's tied to yours, it's tied to all of us. No one is free until all of us is free. Yes. And, you know, I to conclude, I hear that you all as a district have a resolution coming, and then that there's good work coming this way. You know, when this happened at our other school district with high schoolers, swift actions were taken. I commend your dedication, and I implore you, I really beg you, don't sweep this under the rug. No one wants this tied to their district, to their name. I understand. Oh, I fully understand. But please do not sweep this under the rug. Don't give staff and students a cookie cutter lesson on culture and diversity, and we're all gonna hold hands as this symbolic act. You know, I've created K through 12 curriculum. It takes a little more intentionality than that. Engage your students and staff in critical public discourse. We're having a conversation right now in anti-racism and so forth. Demonstrate to your youth what it means to take a hard look at yourself, to unlearn, to relearn, to grow. And it's not an easy process. It requires all of us individually and collectively to play our part. Your community encourages you, is watching you, is here to help. And we wish you the best in this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you. Antoine Brown?
Hello, thank you. I'm glad I'm here. I wouldn't expect to say anything, but after sitting here and listening to people voice their opinion, other than my pastor and my friends, I kind of get emotional because as a Black man, it's kind of hard. It is. And to hear my nephew explain how he was disrespected and called names and nobody came to his defense, it hurts me. And the same week, a week later, my daughter, we're sitting in the living room, she come home and she tells me that people was calling her Shaniquas and disrespecting her with all kind of different names. And we sat at the kitchen counter and we spoke. And she asked me, she said, Antoine, have you ever been bullied? And at the time I told her, I said, nah, I don't think I ever been bullied. But then again, I'm thinking, I'm reflecting, but I have been called names or whatnot. And I grew up on the east side. I grew up on Sunrise Street, 581 Sunrise Street, in between Del Monte and Gardner. We was the only Black family on that street. It was 4 of us, my brother Jonathan, my brother Willie, and myself and my sister Camara. We all went to Alisal High or whatnot. So growing up on that street and growing up in that area, as my pastor said, it's called, what did you say, cross-lateral racism, horizontal racism. I've experienced that or whatnot. I've been called niggers. I've been called, go pick some cotton. I've been told all this at the same breath. Some of my friends' mothers that I grew up and fathers, they was out picking lettuce, which was no different from what my grandparents and everybody had done. Now, people that know me, I went to prison for a period of time for 20 years. And even within prison, there's racism between the different races. Not only just blacks and whites, Hispanics and blacks, it's everybody segregated from each other. And some schools today is segregated from each other. You can walk on different campuses and you can see Hispanics hanging out with Hispanics, blacks hanging out with blacks, whites hanging out with blacks, and some of them even got designated names that they call these areas. And if we was parents and teachers and we knew this or whatnot, we would want to do something about it, you know? And just sitting back and reflecting on everything that I've been from growing up on the east side of Salinas, growing up in going to prison and seeing all this, the one thing that I learned is that in order for all this to change, we got to be willing to change. It starts at home. If we can't reach out to our kids or whatnot, we need to reach out to somebody that's more understanding, like she was saying, find a friend that you could talk to, you feel me? And open your eyes, open your ears. Because teachers, y'all is the tools. You guys are the gateway. If you see a child fighting in the hallway, you're going to go down there and stop them from fighting. You're going to call the campus supervisor to break it up. Same thing. When children is being called out of their name, being disrespected in a way that you know you wouldn't want nobody disrespecting yourself or whatnot, you need to step in. And like somebody said, this room should be more full with teachers and parents and whomever. So I say from this point on, we need to find a solution. And we've been trying to find a solution for many years. But we got to stand on our word. If we can't stand on our word, this solution is never going to work. And I applaud my pastor. Because as soon as this came up, he said he's going to get out there. And he's been out there. And we need more men like him, more women like him. Yes, sir. I see you. Yes. But I was just saying, excuse me, my bad. But yes, racism is runs deep. And we can do something about it, but the first thing going to have to happen is education. And when we're in schools, our students, your students, they need to feel comfortable. They can come to you and tell you things, and something's going to happen. And if you feel the person that you need to tell and they don't do anything, you need to take it to the next level. I shouldn't be a parent, have to be like, oh, I need to go do all this, which I can, but you guys on the front line. And you know when somebody's going to do something and somebody's not going to do something by the way they react to the situation. If you come and say, little Johnny called him the N-word or whatever, and she's okay, and she's him or her is taking notes or whatever, and not really looking you in the face, you need to move on to the next person. Even calling the parents of both children and sitting them down, because the parent might not know. So I say, you know, as a black man here, the only other than my pastor, and I thought I seen one other person, but he left. But I felt I needed to say something. I couldn't just sit down and just let all my women get up here and say something. You feel me? And let you guys know that everything starts at home and at school, because we entrust you guys with our kids on a daily basis. And I want them to go to school and be proud to go to school, be happy to go to school, knowing that somebody got their back. And I just ask you guys that. Love all your kids. I still remember my 5th grade teacher, Miss Dalton, and she wasn't going for none of that. No, I went to this middle school right here before we moved to the east side. They wasn't going for none of that. So you guys don't need to go for none of that. You feel me? You say we are stronger together. You gotta live by that. You just can't wear it on your t-shirt. You know, in prison, we had a slogan, it ain't on me, it's in me. You feel me? It gotta be in you to have the courage to stand up for your child. It gotta be in you to stand up to your vice principal, your principal, your superintendents, if they're not taking your needs and taking you into account. It gotta be in you, it can't be on you. You can wear the t-shirts like you want to, but it gotta be in you. If it ain't in you, sit down. I want somebody that got it in to stand up for my child, for the kids in my neighborhood. And I'm not just talking about blacks, I'm just not talking about Hispanics, I'm talking about all kids. You feel me? It worked both ways. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Delmia Torres.
First of all, I want to say thank you for taking the time to allow me to stand here. Thank you to the board and to the parents. I want to say thanks for coming out. But for speaking from a perspective on being the front line, I'm in the trenches. I'm at John Gutierrez. I am the history teacher there for the 8th grade. I make it a point to make sure I teach it from both perspectives. I teach tolerance for that same reason of what's happening today. It's not right. And so I come here today and my heart is breaking by hearing all this right now. I can't believe it. I think the thing that I see lacking the most right now in anything is accountability. We are there every day to make the students safe. I cannot stand to hear this. My room is a safe place. Black, white, LGBT, whoever you are, come as you are. And if you have a problem, come to me. I will help you, and they know I will extinguish it. But to hear somebody to sit by and just let it go like this, it doesn't sit right with me. Because what's going to happen next year? Is that same occurrence going to happen again? How do we solve it? So I just want to take this time right now to say, it doesn't sit well with me. And we need more inclusivity in our schools. I'm an Afro-Latina who left, and this is my 2nd career. These kids flock to me, and they tell me things that they will not tell half of their teachers. And the one thing I do hear is there's a lot of racism going on, and it has to be remedied. It needs to be exterminated. We can't look back without looking forward, but what we can do is take that footprint that we have laid in front of us and step into it and carry on with it in a way that's going to make it safe for everybody. I am fortunate this year I do not have the problems that a lot of our students or other teachers have experienced because I stop it in my classroom immediately. And I will like to say at this time that I can be a representative on campus. If you guys are troubled, you can come to me and call me or email me, and I'll be happy to try to help if that teacher is not taking action, because it's not right. Whether it be this year or next year, I'm there for you, and I'm happy to, if that's okay with you all, be a part of this process and just make sure that we do things right. I'll step up. Okay? Thank you.
Melissa, if you have the letter that was sent to us regarding this, okay, thank you. If we could have it at this time.
And take a drink of water. This letter was sent in to our public comments from Ms. Asia Garoy. Hopefully I said the last name right. Greetings to Santa Rita School Board trustees, administrators, parents, and community members. As a single parent of a teenage black male student that has spent his entire educational experience in Salinas, California, I am well aware of the dearth of community mentors and instructors that share our identity and can relate to our culture and social experience. The recent incidents that have gone unattended at the Santa Rita's administrative level are reflections of the lack of sensitivity, as well as the urgency to incorporate verbiage and accountability protocols to our student body, our school staff, and community members to address racially charged bullying, use of derogatory slurs, N-word usage, and disrespectful social media posts. My son and I have been on the other side as victims of race-based bullying. Other times, students are not made aware of the process to report such incidents, and administrators do not always inform parents of these incidents. This must change throughout our county school districts. At the foundation of any educational setting, every student needs to feel safe at school, should trust the educators and administrators to provide space that assess for safety, and should not feel further isolated after sharing that they have been harassed, whether online or in person. Parents are also not always clear on what to do, what the processes are, and every teacher, administrator, or community liaison has a responsibility to provide these steps and assist parents and students with reporting any racial reference, microaggression, or hate posts. Our students should not feel further isolation or lack of trust when teachers and administrators turn a blind eye to emotional impacts of social media, furthermore, or belittle or play as if the incidents are out of their control. I ask that the Santa Rita School Board provide better oversight over student online accounts, to develop transparent reporting processes, and to distribute information, create meeting spaces and opportunities to further educate our student body and parents about the impacts of racism, racially charged bullying, cyberbullying, and social responsibility when having access to social media platforms as a student and member of society. Hate can be stopped at home. I love and respect and can be nurtured and thrived when cultivated in a community. Thanks for taking action and modeling respect, accountability for our students. Sincerely, Asia.
Okay, this public comment is moving on to a new topic. Is there anybody that still needed to be heard? Okay, May from SRTA regarding class size and teacher compensation.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent Alderman. My name is May Panganiban, and I'm a fifth grade teacher at New Republic Elementary School. I have been a teacher there and in this district for 7 years now. Excuse me. This is also my 25th year of teaching and my 30th year in the field of education. I'm not saying these things to flaunt my expertise, but rather I'm sharing my years of experience. It is with this experience that I would like to address the areas of class size and compensation. At New Republic, each of our 4 fifth grade classes are fortunate to have, on average, 21 students. This has been extremely helpful for my fifth grade team since we have returned to teaching in person after having had the last year and a half of distance learning. This smaller class size has helped us pinpoint our focus not only on our students' academic needs, but also on their social and emotional learning. Not only has there been academic learning loss, as we know, but learning loss on other levels. On my team, we have had to reteach our students how to treat one another in person. We have had to help our students relearn how to keep something basic like supplies and materials in their own space and not spread across their classmates' desks. We have had to reteach our students the concept of physical boundaries around their peers. However, this small class size has afforded us the ability to see what our students needed and be able to differentiate, to be able to meet their needs on all these levels in both academic and non-academic areas. By having just 21 students on whom to focus, we are able to fully use our expertise, our training, our instincts, our knowledge, and of course our hearts to help our students experience success during this first year back after being away. While I fully realize that not all grade levels in each of our 7 schools can have 21 students in each class or in each period, the point is that smaller class sizes allow us to more completely reach each of our students without the added stress of making sure we are actually reaching each of our students. Many studies, as we know, have been done to support the concept of reduced class size. This is even more crucial during this time of a pandemic. At my previous school, I had upwards of almost 30 students in my class. Of course, there were more papers and assessments to evaluate that goes with it, but there is another added stress. I was always worried that I did not have enough time with each student to properly evaluate and assess if they were making the appropriate progress during that year. So I ask that the board members in the district consider keeping our class size at a number that is manageable for my colleagues and myself so that we can continue to focus on our students and their needs. We may have made it through this first year back to in-person learning during a pandemic. It's not quite over yet. But we still have next year and the year after that, and who knows how many more years to rebuild that learning loss. The other topic that I said I was going to address was compensation. As you may have seen from my colleagues' signs, we are hoping to see an increase in our compensation. It is not just for those of us whose spouses or partners may have been laid off due to COVID, but it's for all of us. I have colleagues here who are hoping to purchase their first home. Others have a growing family. Others are becoming caregivers for a family member and need to expand the physical size of their home. Some of us, like myself, have 2 kids starting college in the fall and possibly an unexpected major home repair. There are those of us who are possibly putting off seeing a doctor because they are worried about how to pay the balance of that bill, the balance that the insurance does not cover. We have already seen an increase in the cost of basic necessities. For my family of 4, our grocery purchase has increased by $150 more a month. And that's with store brand and generic products, no fun stuff. And the list goes on and on for why we need, and may I be bold enough to say deserve, an increase. We also want to entice new teachers to our district. We know there's a teacher shortage, and the Monterey Peninsula, as we all know, is an expensive place to live. Please increase that starting salary. Let's get those great new teachers in our district now. And on the opposite end of that spectrum, we want to keep our awesome, experienced teachers in our district and not have them look for another teaching position elsewhere, or maybe forced to make a career change because their salary isn't just enough. Personally, I'm going to be 60 next year. And while I am an old dog who can still learn new tricks, I don't want to have to go someplace to learn those new tricks. I want to stay in my little circus in room 403. And I want to add to the tricks I already have. I don't want to have to get a bag of new tricks that I can't even figure out how to take out of the bag. But in all seriousness, board members and district, I hope that you will support our article for an increase in compensation. Mr. Patel, at the last meeting, you mentioned that everyone on the board holds the teachers in our district in the highest regard. I believe with all my heart that you are sincere. I do believe that everyone on this board and in this district supports us and believes in us. But I ask the district and the board, in addition to supporting and believing in us, please invest in us. Invest in us. Invest in us the way people say we need to invest in our children because they are the future. We teachers, we play a critical and essential role in helping our students get ready for that future. Invest in us as we prepare our students for their future. We are the little district that can and that does. Our district is now in a position where it can move from words to action. What will you do? Thank you.
Thank you. I am going to move into the business of the meeting unless there's anybody else who has something for public comment. And thank everybody for being here. I really appreciate it. Okay. Just going to give people a minute to. In years of going to meetings and speaking at meetings myself.
You know, I want to thank you, Madam President, for your openness and allowing the people to speak their mind and granting them the time. You know, it's very important, and we didn't limit, so I appreciated that, and I want to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I was overwhelmed by how helpful and positive and real people were. I mean, this is terrible, and we need to talk about the fact that it's terrible because unless you're talking about it, you're not changing it. So, but I appreciate everybody being here. We had changed the agenda before we started, so we're going to do 13.1 first, and then we're going to go back to 8.1. So, in keeping with what we have been discussing, this is a resolution condemning racism and affirming the district's commitment to an inclusive and safe school environment for all. I am going to read the resolution when we're done, but I just wanted to ask if the board had any questions or statements that they want to make beforehand. Okay, just personally, okay, if I get teary, y'all are going to bear with me, but teaching and being on this board, those are the core of who I am, and school is a sacred space to me. It's our challenge every day to do better, and we're gonna continue to make it a goal and continue to work every day. This is Santa Rita Union School District Board Resolution 22.05.09, resolution denouncing racism and supporting equity, safety, and well-being of Black people. Whereas the Santa Rita Union School District is committed to providing a physically and socially emotionally safe school environment that allows all students equal access and opportunities in the district's academic and other educational support programs, services, and activities. The Board of Education prohibits at any school district or school activity racial discrimination, including discriminatory harassment, intimidation, and/or bullying of any student based on actual or perceived characteristics of race or ethnicity, color, nationality, national origin, immigration status, ethnic group identification, age, religion, physical or mental disability, sex, sexual orientation, gender, gender identity, gender expression, or any other characteristic identified in Education Code 200 or 220, Penal Code 422.55, or Government Code 11135, or based on association with a person or group with one or more of these actual or perceived characteristics. Whereas we value and teach equity, diversity, and inclusion, the Santa Rita Union School District elevates goals of equity, and we actively teach our students conflict resolution, to communicate their own feelings of injustice without prejudice, and to be upstanders in their community. Whereas we believe that silence and inaction perpetuate injustice, bias, and racism. Whereas recent events in the United States remind us that hundreds of years of prejudices, injustices, and inequalities are embedded in our societies, from social structures to institutions to cultures to individuals. Decades of civil rights legislation and education have not obliterated racism, and its breath has a negative impact on the safety, health, and well-being of Black individuals, families, and communities. Whereas Black community members continue to report that they regularly experience microaggressions, racial profiling, hate incidents, and racial bias in all systems they encounter, including our school district. Whereas we recognize that discrimination, bias, and racist incidents negatively affect the mental health and, in turn, the academic outcomes of Black students. Whereas we recognize that there are employees and students who have felt harmed and who want the board to take immediate action. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Santa Rita Union School District Board stands firmly against bigotry, prejudice, discrimination, and inequity in all forms, both institutional and individual. SRUSD denounces discrimination, racism, and sentiments against Black people. We will not tolerate racist treatment of any members of our community, and we will speak out against racism and systematic oppression in our society to help stop the spread of bigotry. SRUSD will increase its efforts to provide a safe and welcoming school environment for all students, working with the City of Salinas, County of Monterey, community nonprofits, faith communities, and other government agencies. SRUSD will confront the biases in our own school district and actively engage in the challenging work of dismantling the problematic practices that are limiting the opportunities for our Black and brown students. So could I have a motion, please?
I would like to strongly motion for approval.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval? No. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, we've lost our members that are participating in hybrid, so we'll just continue.
Mr. Neil Patel?
Aye, Captain.
Ms. Alvariano?
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner?
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval? Mr. Jacob Sandoval and Mr. Andrew Sandoval are not present. Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you, and thank you to my fellow board members. And I'm going to sign this now.
Madam President, I want to take a moment to thank our administrative staff, especially our superintendent, Dr. Smith, for, addressing the situation in a comprehensive manner, and I hope it is sustainable over time. I really want to make sure that this isn't just something we do and forget about. That was a common concern amongst the speakers. So, I want to make sure it continues to be a priority year after year after year, and make this a permanent part of our learning process. Having said that, once again, thank you. We have a lot of work to do.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate your comments. We are now going to go back to 8.1, the Prospective Bond Program and Election Timeline, and thank you for hanging out with us tonight. I appreciate it.
Good evening, board members, community staff. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board today inviting us here to present some information for you regarding a potential funding program to address some of your modernization needs district-wide. Here along with me is my colleague Shin Green. You see him there. We made copies of the presentation, and so I hope that you can find them pretty easily in your packet. If not, we'll pass them around.
So
We do
everyone
have
should
them,
have a
thank
copy.
you.
Yeah, I left it by you.
Okay, great,
Yeah.
great,
If not, I have two extra. If you can't find it, I have two extra here.
great, thank you. And so as I mentioned, really for today, we wanted to talk about a funding program, and specifically in context of what we refer to as a school facilities improvement district. And so I'll go into some detail as to what that means and some of the steps that are going to be required if you so choose to go in that direction. I mentioned that the purpose of the funding program is really to address some of the facilities needs that you've been uncovering, I think, over the course of a very deep study here to draw out in a very methodical, intentional way your master facilities master plan, right? Master facilities plan. And through the course of that plan, I think what we all recognize is really that the modernization needs are significant for the district. Where typically the useful life of a classroom based on certain state standards is in the 25 year span before you start having to make significant infrastructure improvements. Most of our schools here, I think, are 50 years old or so. And so with that, I think the big question then becomes, how do we address those needs? Where do we find the resources to be able to put some money into our classrooms, to bring them up to date, to provide ongoing quality environments for our students? And so one step, and most recently, I believe in your last board meeting, you received some information from a separate consultant looking at dollars that are available through the school facilities program, the SFP. And that really is the state's contribution to local school districts in terms of eligible dollars that you can receive through the course of grants. They had estimated that approximately $12.2 million are available to the school district in modernization grants, right? Those are dollars that come to the district, but for the district's ability to be able to provide a matching dollar. And so I think particularly for the SFP program for modernization, the state says for every 60 cents that I provide, you've got to come up with 40 cents, okay? And so we think, okay, well, those $12 million will make a big impact. Obviously, then the next big question becomes, where do we come up with the local match? The local match here, as I mentioned, is available to the district through the course of a school facilities improvement district as a potential local funding source, okay? And so in the past, we find that the district, in fact, has had a great deal of success in leveraging local dollars, right? For every $1 provided by your local homeowners, property taxpayers, you're able to then get some from the state, your fair share of funding from other sources. If you look at the presentation, there's a couple graphics there on the bottom. You see that in the past, the district has previously passed two different bond measures. The first one in 1995 for $10 million, and then thereafter in 2006 for $14.6 million. And so you're no stranger to these local funding programs. And so too, I mentioned that you've been able to leverage those dollars. If we look historically looking at the graph to the right of that, you see the amount of grants that have been delivered to the district in the amounts of $5.7 million historically. And interestingly, one thing that you'll note is that the bond programs that have been approved locally line up with the release of grant dollars that you've secured from the states. And so again, I think, one is that, can we raise local support to get state money? You have. Have you actually succeeded in getting those state dollars? You have. And so today, I think really the question is, how can we go about it again, recognizing that, yes, there's $12 million, but obviously, potentially, our needs far exceed that, okay? And so some basics regarding the School Facilities Improvement District and what that means. A School Facilities Improvement District essentially provides funding authorization to the district, and specifically it does so by drawing a sub-district within the district-wide boundaries. And so the reason for that is that because if we're talking about modernization, essentially we're talking about existing schools. And so as we're looking at the existing schools, where they're located for the currently built out community, it makes sense that you're trying to tie the benefit of the investment in the existing schools with also those that are going to be paying for those investments. And so some question of fairness and equity goes into that. Okay, and so by drawing the sub-district, it allows us to tie in those two, the benefit and cost. And so it's very typical, I think, a very common funding tool across the states, and so employed as needed. And so in all other respects, an SFID or School Facilities Improvement District is no different than any other general obligation bond program, very much like you've done so in the past. It requires voter approval, no taxation without representation, right? And those bonds, the funding, it actually can be sold in the form of a tax-exempt municipal security that provides a benefit to the bondholder. In this case, it's a form of borrowing by the school district at a lower cost, right? And so bonds, particularly municipal bonds, provide a public benefit onto bondholders to incentivize investors to put their money into public benefits. And so in this case, again, that translates into lower interest costs for the district. And so the other component of an SFID is that that borrowing or those bonds are paid by the district's tax base. Oftentimes we refer to it as a full faith pledge of the district's tax base on an unlimited basis, right? So that those bonds will be repaid from the collection of tax revenue sources, right, without any limitation. And the way those taxes are levied is that they're levied on an ad valorem basis or per value. The per value referring to the actual assessment of that property, such that the taxes per every 100,000 of assessed property value. And I'll go into more detail because that's how we derive how much funding we believe may become available. So I mentioned that every time you establish a bond program, you go to your local voters for approval. There's really two funding vehicles through state law, constitutional provisions in the state of California that allow school districts to implement these programs. One refers to Proposition 46, and the second refers to Proposition 39. These are election vehicles. And so historically, Proposition 46 gave districts tax or bonding authority requiring 2/3 voter support. Under Proposition 39, most recently approved in 2001, that 2/3 requirement for voter support was lowered to 55%, meaning that you would be able to get a tax bonding authority with 55% of voter approval, right? So the difference between each one of these programs really has to do with how much tax you can levy and what the funds can be used for. And so under Proposition 46, there's no tax rate limitation. Under Proposition 39, there's a $30 tax rate limitation, okay? In the past, the district has implemented a program under each one of those provisions, 2/3 as well as Prop 39. And so I mentioned that the second limitation having to do with the use of funds, under each one of those programs, the funds are specifically dedicated to capital infrastructure projects, right? Buildings, brick and mortar, that sort of thing. You can acquire an asset, you can improve it. Under Proposition 39, however, it goes a step further such that you can also pay for furnishings, technology, and equipment. I think recognizing that it's nice to have a classroom in there, but ultimately you've got to fill it with these instruments and tools to be able to implement learning. Okay. Now, another manner in which I differ, it has to do with accountability measures. One of the concessions for decreasing the voter requirement, making it easier to pass the bond measure, was a commitment to provide a transparency to the local community in terms of how those funds were going to be used. So under Proposition 39, the commitment is that the board will set up a bond oversight committee, okay, and that there would be provision of annual audits and an expenditure report that's released to the community to make sure that those dollars were used as they were committed to voters at the time of the election. And so, although that's a big commitment or differentiation between each one of these election types, we'd like to say that, in fact, we recommend that without regard to whatever election vehicle you decide to pursue, you still implement those oversight and disclosure commitments for the obvious reasons. I think transparency is good. And so too, I think the community recognizes that they ask for it, okay? Now, the last piece here that I'd like to note is that under a Proposition 46 election, you can conduct one of those elections on any given Tuesday. Obviously, there's some requirements in terms of the proceedings that and notices to the community when you're going to be having the election. And under Proposition 39, the requirement is that you consolidate with a regularly scheduled election. And given, as you know, I think as part of your how you hold your board elections now in consolidation with other county elections, those tend to occur on regular scheduled years. So even years. And so the next opportunity here before us is in 2022. In this November, I think is what we're eyeing, okay? So when I was invited to come to speak to you, I think that I was asked, well, Miguel, I think the big question is, if we did one of these programs, how many dollars do we believe we could make available? So I'll get to that part because I know it's the real punchline here. But in terms of the building block of knowledge here, I want to first reference, I think, this slide here with respect to assessed value. So assessed value is the tax base, right? This is really the revenue source that provides the dollars that we use to repay the bonds. And so when we look at the tax base, we look at the history of growth over time. And you find that for Santa Rita, that growth has happened pretty significantly and very positively in a robust manner, but for that thing that hurt us all in 2008, right, when the real estate market fell out. And so since then, however, you've continued a pretty positive growth trend. You're in your 10th, going into your 11th year of growth. And so when you take into account some of the declines with some of the increases, you see that on average, the district's tax base has grown about 5.36%. Let's call it 5.4% annually over a 25-year term, okay? And so the reason I mention that is because going forward, we need to be able to make an educated guess as to what we think is going to happen with the tax base so that we can control for the amount of tax revenues that we estimate are going to become available to repay those bonds. And so for our purpose, we like to be very conservative in terms of future growth. And so specifically for the SFID, we recognize that we're looking really at about 98% of the value of the entire district. And that comes up to about $2.4 billion, okay? And so as we make that educated guess about projections going forward, we think that conservative guess would be closer to about 3.5% to 4% annually. And so again, putting that in context of the historical 5.4% annual growth, we think it's defensible. But obviously, we're always going to continue to err on the conservative side and adjust our projections as we go along, because every year there's new data, and so we take that into account. So again, back to the question of how much money is available, right? This is the second factor that comes into consideration, the district's bonding capacity. And so when Rosa says, hey, Miguel, what is the district's bonding capacity? I said, I want to be very explicit. Bonding capacity refers to the statutory debt limit, right? The state says to every government entity, there's only so much bonds that you should be selling at any given point. For elementary school districts across the state, it makes no reference to the cost of the school. It makes no reference to the size of your tax base. They say it should only be 1.25% of your assessed value. And so because that can be somewhat significant for districts with very modest tax bases such as ours, they also make allowances that would allow you to increase that. But I'll get to that in a minute. So 1.25% of assessed value, I think what you find here that in our current year, given our assessed value, we multiply that times 1.25%, we have a total bonding capacity of about $30 million today. However, we subtract that blue section there on the graph, right? Those are the amount of the prior bonds that had been sold that are currently outstanding and being repaid. And so we're left with a net remaining bonding capacity of about $10.3 million today. Again, this is the state measure that says about how much debt we should incur at any given time. Now, what happens is that obviously we know that existing bonds are going to continue to be repaid, right? Unlimited full faith pledge of a district's tax base. Remember that, so they're going to be repaid. And so the other component is that we hope, and knock on wood, is that our tax base or assessed value is going to increase. So as our assessed value increases, existing debt is repaid, that provides additional bonding capacity. A 5-year outlook, we estimate that our total bonding capacity is going to increase to about 35 million, of which the remaining net bonding capacity will be about $20 million. And that's there at the last bar for year 2026. Now, keeping in mind that when we talk about potential $20 million or any sort of semblance of how many dollars become available to the district at any given point, it's not like we go out and sell all the bonds at once. We establish a bond program of the total funding amount, and we only draw down on that bond authorization over time based on how much tax revenue is available and how much obviously we need for projects that we can support. Okay, so a couple moving parts there, but just want to let you know that it's not like we go out and we max out. We take these factors into account. Lastly, just to reiterate again that bonding capacity is a state allowance, a debt limit. However, there's a mechanism through the State Board of Education because they recognize that the cost of building a school is proportionally a greater burden for smaller districts. They recognize that 1.25% should probably be higher. And so almost routinely, they will hear through a waiver process the district's funding needs. And to date, I don't believe that they've declined a single one. Okay? So this gets us, yes? It really, I think that more so that what's important to the state is that you have the ability to come back within your bonding, your statutory debt limit within a foreseeable period. And so given your funding needs, they would not make any distinction or, they would not say to the district, you are overburdened at X percent. I've worked with districts that are exceeding 2.5%, for example. Again, it really has to do with the amount of funding and when the district can attest that it will come back within compliance over a period of time. And so, not a direct answer, but that's because there's no set standard in terms of a maximum level of indebtedness. However, with that, I will say it is important to us with respect to the district's credit rating. And so for that reason, we also want to make sure that we manage that accordingly. And so I mentioned that we sell bonds in steps over time as we repay existing debt and as our tax base grows and as our assessed value grows. Because we want to make sure that we do not, take on too much debt such that it puts our district's strong credit rating at peril. And so this next slide now gets us to the punchline, right? Looking at an SFID, I think that really the third component or third factor in trying to figure out how much bond proceed is really available, it has to do with the amount of the tax rate. I mentioned earlier that taxes are levied per every 100,000 of assessed value. And so in this case, we presented a various tax rates between $20 to $30 to $40. And you'll see there that depending on the election vehicle, because under Proposition 39, the maximum tax rate is $30. After that, under Proposition 46, we can establish a larger tax rate. And so in all, I think what we're finding is that we can get a reasonable amount of dollars at what we think is a moderate tax rate. At $20 tax rate, we generate about $16 million. At the higher range of $40 tax rate generates about $32.6 million, okay? And there you see how we structure the bonds over time and through a period of 3 years to allow additional assessed value to grow, and also which would allow us to control the target tax rate. And so we believe that I mentioned that these tax rates are actually moderate. And in fact, I think, relative to some of your peers, I think they would be somewhere in the mid-spectrum, okay? But ultimately, I think what really guides us in terms of the tax rate as well as the amount of funding is, one, your needs, and certainly what we think the community will support, right? And so trying to find that intersection of one and the other, I think is really both the art and the science of this. And so that, I think, is something that we will also be contemplating as we talk about the next item that would be on your agenda for today. But I'll get back to that in a second. So in terms of forming the SFID, I think there's some process that I think would come before the board. We're seeing that really as a 4-step process. More immediately, it would be that the district, first off, obviously deciding that it wants to proceed. I think the next step would be for the district to adopt a resolution of an intention to form an SFID. Essentially, that presents the initial provisions of what the program may look like in terms of what it's going to fund, how the boundaries are going to look like of the SFID, as well as some dates that I think with respect to how you're going to notice the public and establish a public hearing to be able to address public input. And so that's the first step. The second step has to do with the actual public hearing. That can happen concurrently with the third step, which is essentially the resolution of the adoption of the SFID. At that point, the district would form the SFID, asking also that the County Board of Supervisors to adopt the boundaries of the SFID for taxation purposes. The last piece here that would be requiring action for the board would be the adoption of the resolution calling the election. And so in this case, now that we've taken the active steps to formulate the SFID, then it's actually deciding to put it before the voters so that they can approve it, okay? In this case, it would include a lot of the similar elements of the formation, the estimate of costs, the tax rates, the funding amounts, and what it's going to pay for, okay? So those 4 steps are you can see here in a more elaborate timeline from today going forward. You'll see that the legend there indicates some of the the items that really have to do with process and analysis, what we think would be the sort of the planning phase. And that's where we are currently in terms of the exploring of these, the funding, as well as lining up some of the project needs. The next step would really be for the board to go to the community and gauge public input to see if there's alignment between what the district's priorities and needs are with what the community sees as being the important things, right? At that point too, I think, it would be appropriate to ask, is now the time to implement a tax, because this is essentially what it is. And obviously what's happening in the economy, what's happening in the headline news, those are real issues to bear. And so taken together, we want to get a real sense of what the community is feeling and what they think is appropriate here as a next course of action. So assuming that you decide to move forward, then I think at that point, then we would come back to the board with the set of action steps, mention the resolution of intention to form the SFID, then subsequently the public hearing, and then the adoption of the resolution calling the election. What we see here, I think, is pretty a consolidated timeline, but very achievable. I think that for our part, is at one step at a time. But I did share with your superintendent, let's, if it is something that you want to proceed with, I think it's going to be something where we are really going to, dive in and be present, I think, between what we see between now and August. August is the deadline for the district to call the election based on certain requirements by the state. Technically, we have 88 days before the scheduled election to be able to adopt a resolution that would place us on the November ballot. And so that's essentially it, I think. I mentioned next steps. I think most immediately, the district's feedback and any questions you may have, I can address the elements of the PO if that's something that you choose.
Any questions from the board?
I just want to thank you for your presentation. I had a lot of questions prior to your presentation, and you had a very thorough presentation. I love the comparison between the different bond proposals and our capacity. I thank you for your openness regarding the current status of the economy, and like I said, we definitely need the funds. We need to modernize. The question is will the voters approve it? But I think that's partially on us too. We have to make the case for it. So having said that, I want to say thank you for your presentation. It helped me decide what I would like to do. So having said that, I'll wait for further discussion.
Alva, did you have any questions at this time?
No, it was pretty. I guess you guys that was pretty thorough, very easy to understand. I totally understand where we're going to have to start, and by August, I guess, is when we need to really submit everything, if that's the route that we're going. But other than that, it was a good presentation, and I guess we just need to talk about it and see where we go from here.
Thank you. Okay, Andrew or Jacob, are you online? Did you have any questions at this time? I am certainly in favor of doing a poll and figuring out where we are. And I absolutely know that there are so many needs in the district at this time. Personally, I feel like this is too short of a clock based on where I am personally, I've worked on a bond campaign that passed. I've worked on a bond campaign that failed. And I can't say at this time that in the fall I can completely devote myself to getting this passed. And I would like to be at the point where I could say that. It's going to be a crucial election in Salinas, and I have other things that I need to devote myself to. And it's not that they're more important than this, but they're crucial to the future of the school district. So that's a concern that I have.
I also share your concern regarding the time frame. I would like to see what happens with the feasibility. I think that's the whole purpose of it, and I would like to await the results of that, if we do pursue it.
Absolutely.
Shin, or Miguel, if we were to go ahead and proceed with the feasibility study, but determined that we didn't want to do it at this time, would that play into doing it the following year?
It would not.
It would not. We would need to do it again.
I'm sorry, just for clarification, when you say play into,
Would we be able to, if the feasibility study said that yes, the community would support that, I'm getting to, should we go ahead and move forward with the feasibility study, even if the question is, do we do it this fall or do we wait?
And that's something that you would explore through the course of the feasibility study.
Okay.
I think that's what we find is that community sentiment changes. And so if you're saying, would we be able, if we implement a poll now and decide not to move forward, can we, under the same study, can we then do something in 2023, 2024? I think that we would have to then probably go back to the community again. Okay. Yeah.
What I would like to add, if I may, and hopefully you can hear me, is that by doing the feasibility now, it will give us a gauge on where the community's sentiments lie. And if it is not the right time, it will give us some direction as to what to do in leading into that next potential effort, which I think is very informative.
Okay. So in regards to that, so 8.2, approve survey research contract for a bond feasibility study. Did we have any more questions before we discussed approving this contract?
Madam President, I was just impressed. I like the local coverage. I love the fact that other school districts have had success with this group, and I like the price point that they came in with. So, given those two concerns, I really support the proposal.
Can I get a motion to approve then?
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Is Andrew on? Okay. Mr. Andrew Sandoval?
Aye.
Mr. Neil Patel?
Aye, Captain.
Ms. Alvariano?
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner?
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval is not present. Motion passes 4-0.
And thank you very much. It was incredibly helpful. Moving to 8.3, approve resolution 22.05.10, funding of delinquent property taxes.
Yeah, that's my item, and we do this every 3 years. As you know, Santa Rita and the 24 districts in Monterey County, we're part of a JPA that helps out with delinquent property taxes. So instead of us waiting maybe years, months to get those taxes, we are part of this JPA, and we get the money sooner. This is linked through LCFF. We do this every year, every 3 years. So this is just to do an extension for the 2022, 2023, and 2024 taxes.
Thank you. Any questions? Can I get a motion to approve?
So motion.
Second.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval?
Aye.
Mr. Neil Patel?
Aye, Captain.
Ms. Alvariano?
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner?
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval is not present. Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, 8.4, approve of renewal of the super co-op agreement.
Chuck is not with us this evening, so I told him I would handle this item if he didn't make it in time. This is our membership in our co-op, and we renew it each year. So our fee to be part of the membership is $800, and all other costs associated are based on our products that we order and receive. Being a member of the co-op allows us to get some pretty good discount and access to different items for Chuck's department.
Thank you. Any questions?
I just want to commend the naming of this renewal. It's called Super Co-op.
Only the best for our kids.
I understand these things. Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Mr. Neil Patel,
A super aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner,
Aye.
Ms. Elva Ariano,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval is not present. Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. 9.1, approval of service agreement with PSLF Jobs for the 2022-2023 school year.
Thank you. PSFL Jobs is an organization that assists staff members in public entities with loan forgiveness. We did a pilot with them the year before last and found that there were significant amounts of debt that some of our staff members are facing due to student loans in order to get their educational credentials. So this organization works with our employees to help them maximize the benefits that they can receive through the student loan forgiveness programs. They also have a job board in which we can advertise our jobs as members of their or partners with them as an organization that helps our staff with their student loan debt, since it's such a burden for many of our employees. So it's a relatively small fee for this service that could be a big benefit for us and part of our retention recruitment strategy for staff.
Excellent. Any questions?
Just thank you. I mean, student debt, that's just crazy. Having said that, the cost point is very low considering the amount of benefit and it's targeted. So I think everything you said is absolutely supportable. Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Mr. Neil Patel,
Aye, aye, Captain.
Ms. Elva Ariano,
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval is not present. Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Moving on to 11.1, information regarding the student retreat, Hack the Woods.
So this week, I've had the privilege of working with many of the members of the community that you saw here tonight, along with some other community partners. I've been able to work with Alma Cervantes from Building Better Communities, with Miss Arlene de la Peña from Restorative Justice Partners, with Pastor Smith, who you saw here, and then Miss Jordana Henry, who leads the Black Girl Magic program at Rancho San Juan. Jordana and I didn't meet today, but we have a meeting coming up next week together. So I've been really excited to partner with each of these organizations. On top of that, I've had the privilege of partnering with the Black Youth Leadership Project out of Sacramento. And Miss Laureen Pryor, who I've known from the past, and I really turned to her for support. And Miss Pryor invited us to an opportunity that's something that our students really need right now. And so that's this coming up on the weekend of the 20th to the 22nd. The Black Youth Leadership Project is taking kiddos on a retreat for Friday to Sunday night up in Portola. And it's really going to be an opportunity for students to learn and for me to learn beside them, to meet, interact with other students and learn from each other, to develop their own voice, and as you heard, to heal from some of the events that's happened in our district over the last couple weeks. And so I bring you this informational item. I will bring the students back so that they can report back to you about this exciting event. I'm not that excited about sleeping in a cabin, but it's okay. We're going to be good. And thank you again to the district for buying us what the kids have deemed the party bus, which is the van. Because that's what we'll be using to drive up there and participate in this event. So I'm excited for the opportunity. I'm excited for our students to have it.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you so much. These are difficult times, and I'm liking the fact that we're being comprehensive, we're thinking outside the box, we're providing resolution, we're going to restorative justice programs. I like the programs we're putting in place to deal with the various situations that are coming up. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to echo that and say I appreciated so much the parents saying, like, yes, we were heard. You know, it's not fixed, but it could have been a very different meeting if people had said, like, hey, I kept knocking and nobody ever answered, and that's not what happened. So I'm incredibly grateful. Thank you. And yes, I want to hear all about sleeping in the woods, which I would be excited about, but you know, to each their own.
And I just want to add to what you said, Sarah, that it's what's really important to me is that, and I've spoken to each of the members of this community, that this work doesn't stop now, and it doesn't stop with this retreat, and it doesn't stop with this one training, and that I need the support of this community to do the job right. And I've reassured them that this board is in support as well. And so I'm excited to do the work, and I'm excited to have them on this team with us to do that work, because we can't do it without them. So.
Agreed. All that.
Sarah?
Andrew, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I do want to thank you, Superintendent Alderman and Summer. My boys also attend John G, and they were on the ground, and they did hear of the conversation you had with students. I appreciate the fast action to reach out and have Pastor Smith come to the school. I think you guys are doing a great, fantastic job, and I know there's a lot of healing. It's going to be a long-term project, but I'm happy with the community that came out that also recognize that we're not going to sweep nothing under the rug, and we're going to do whatever we can to make sure people know that it's not okay. So, and I want to thank Mr. Patel for your words, and everyone for their support of Summer and Superintendent Alderman's work with this. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going on to 13.2, which is informational. These are letters in support.
So I just wanted to make sure that I brought these to the board, and we'll be sending these off. So we have our letters in support of encouraging the governor and the chief executive officer for CalSTARS to increase the allowable income for retirees who are returning right now when we are in a pinch all across education in the state, to allow them to come back on board and help out their colleagues when they're willing and ready to do so. Right now, there's a cap on how much they're able to earn, and so we are asking these officials to consider broadening that. So that was our first letter. And our next one, and I really want to thank Sarah Turner for bringing this to us. This is asking for the governor and committees to support Assembly budget plan for $10 billion investment in one-time general fund surplus to support school facility program. As you just saw, we talked about possibly needing a bond in order to obtain state matching funds, and that's simply to modernize our current facilities. So that's not to build some beautiful glass tower or anything. It's really to replace failing classrooms, roofs, updating electrical infrastructure from the 1950s. You know, we like retro, but that's getting challenging. And so I appreciate you bringing that to us. So we wanted to include that in our letters that we're going to be sending out. So I incorporated it in with the others we intended to do. And our final one is to urge the USDA authority to expand the waiver for our school feeding programs that have been going on. And they're on the cusp of looking at doing that. And we just want to let them know that our little district in Salinas, California would really benefit from that.
Thank you so much. Any questions or comments?
I just want to say thank you for your work on that. I think it's important that our legislators hear from us and, just urge them in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for being so gracious when I brought forward the facilities letter that happened at the Monterey County School Boards Association meeting. The MCOE has already sent a letter of support on behalf of the county, and they were asking each of the individual districts, if possible, to do so. as you guys may be aware, there's like a 3-year wait right now in terms of money that you are eligible for, but getting it to you. And they're just trying to increase that the funds that are available, to schools that the state already agrees should have the money. So, this is for needed modernization and construction. And certainly we need it, and everybody else does too. Going on to 14.1, our next regular board meeting will be 2 weeks from today, and we will have had our GV and JG graduations by then, and we'll have big important people ready to go to high school. Under 14.2, suggested future board items. Are there anything that people would like to agendize? Okay, so we're at 15.1. Could I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'm gonna have to second it because Mr. Sandoval over there, I think it's 11:30,
Yeah.
He's past his bedtime. So yeah, I second that motion.
I appreciate Mr. Patel taking one for the team. Could we have roll call, please?
Mr. Andrew Sandoval.
Hi, thank you, Patel.
It's all about you.
Mr. Neil Patel.
Oh, yes, aye, Captain. It's
Ms.
bedtime.
Alvariano.
Aye.
Ms. Sarah Turner.
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval is not present. Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Jacob already went to bed. I told you.